tragic fact that in this country, I think less than 30% of the population have wills. Yeah, most of us go without a will, and the reason is we're terrified that if we write our will on Monday, we'll be hit by a bus on Tuesday.
Hello, and welcome to Not Born Yesterday, a podcast dedicated to older adults and the challenges and joys of aging. Not Born Yesterday is about playing, working, loving, laughing, and enjoying the possibilities and opportunities of later years. I'm Miriam Goodman, your co-host. Not Born Yesterday examines the problems and solutions of growing older today. We bring you the wisdom and voices of experts in the field of aging and offer tips on how to feel your best, use your lifetime skills and experiences, and make the coming months and years as fulfilling as possible. Along the way, we hope you will share your thoughts and concerns about being older and let us know how we can help.
I'm your co-host, Lynn Winter-Gross. Not Born Yesterday is brought to you by Next Village San Francisco. Next Village San Francisco is a local nonprofit providing older adults in the Northeast neighborhood of San Francisco with support to help them age in place, as well as offering cultural, educational, and social activities that keep people connected and engaged with the community and with each other.
Scott Taylor Smith is a lawyer, founder, partner, and CEO of Viant Capital, a San Francisco-based investment company specializing in technology investing. He's had a lot of education and resources, yet when his mother died, he made a series of costly and agonizing mistakes while trying to settle her affairs. Afterwards, Scott decided to write the book he wished he had had when he needed it. His book, When Someone Dies, The Practical Guide to the Logistics of Death, provides a framework for making good, informed, and money-saving decisions in the days, weeks, and months after a loved one dies. Whether the issue is writing an obituary, dealing with finances, or contacting family and friends, Scott has been there and has much to share that we hope can make your lives easier. Scott, welcome to Not Born Yesterday.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Your book's not about grieving, but it is a more practical guide to things you must do after someone dies. Surviving spouses or adult children may not be prepared for what needs to be done immediately. Can you start us out with what we should do first when someone dies?
Well, the most important thing is to notify all of the interested parties, especially family members, and then also to get in touch with a mortuary or to transport the body.
Is transporting a body an issue?
It can be. Under most state laws, there are very few people who are authorized to move a dead body. For example, you're not allowed to do it. The family is not allowed to do it. So you have to have a licensed professional move a body.
What's the best way to tell your family and friends? How do you do that? You just send an email to all the friends that you can find? What do you tell them?
I think there are tiers of importance. Obviously, with the family, you want to make phone calls immediately. We treat death like a disease in this country. We're afraid that if we talk about it, we're going to catch it. And so it's really, we're unique in the world in that regard. And so people are very reluctant to ask you about how your dying spouse or in-law or mother or father is doing. So it's really important to allow you to initiate the communication so that they can then feel comfortable calling and talking to you.
I want to change the subject a little bit and get more to logistics. We've all heard the phrase power of attorney, but exactly what does that mean? And can siblings or other family members sometimes override the person that has that power of attorney?
Okay, there are two types of powers of attorney. One is a power of attorney that is global and unlimited, meaning you have that power even when the person is alive. And then the other type of power of attorney is when somebody is either incompetent or it only comes into effect when somebody dies. But a power of attorney is a very important instrument to have because it allows you to access bank accounts, securities accounts, to do the business of the funeral home and various other things.
Do you need the power of attorney? Can a child just take care of all that stuff?
Well, the spouse can. It's not entirely clear that the children can. Some people are very relaxed about this, very casual, and other people are very, very strict that they won't do anything. Banks, for example, will only act with a power of attorney. They will not do anything, even if you're the spouse or the child. And this is a huge problem because you're going to, right after someone dies, you're going to need access to their accounts in order to pay for various expenses and to continue paying a mortgage on a house, the electrical bill, and things like that. So it's really important to have somebody capacitated to do that. Now, the interesting question is, who should have that power? And I want to come back to the question of, can the children override the power of attorney? And the answer to that question is no. The person who has a valid power of attorney is the sole authority and can overrule the children, even the spouse. But the question that often comes up is, who should have that power? And this was something that came up and was a problem in my family. I had the power of attorney for my mom, but two of my sisters were constantly going into the doctors and the nurses and overruling my health directives. And we finally had to have a meeting with the staff at the nursing home, and I was with my others and with my sisters, in order to make it clear that I was the sole person exercising that authority. But the question is, who should have that power? Should it be your spouse? Should it be a child? Should it be your lawyer? And there are competing arguments. It's because at the time that someone is dying, it's a very, very emotional and distressing event. Sometimes the person closest to the person dying may be the worst person to have the power of attorney, because they also will be somewhat incapacitated and may make irrational, inappropriate decisions. On the other hand, giving the power of attorney to someone like your attorney or your accountant, they may not be available, they may be too aloof, they may not care enough. And so my normal recommendation is that you reside the power of attorney in either the spouse or the most trustworthy child.
That has to be done legally. You have to have a legal document that says one or both of those has the power of attorney.
Yes, you have to. The power of attorney has to be signed well in advance of somebody needing it, because you have to be known to be mentally competent at the time you sign over the power of attorney. And the forms are available online. You can go onto various websites and type in the state you reside in and find a power of attorney. And then it will ask you a series of questions. Do you want it to be durable, et cetera, et cetera?
And what about a funeral, to jump to a different subject for a minute? What if the deceased hasn't really let his or her wishes be known?
Ideally, you know what the person wanted before they pass away. A religion comes into play here. Various religions are very strict about burying within a certain period of time, whether you embalm or don't embalm, whether you can be cremated. Ideally, you know what the deceased wanted. If you don't know or didn't know, then it's really up to the spouse to decide. People these days are going for what's called a green funeral or green embalming, where they're just placed into the earth without being embalmed, because embalming fluid is highly, highly toxic to the environment.
So how do you go about dealing with the funeral home where we know there's going to be a hard sell, or choosing a grave site? Who takes care of all those things?
Oh, you've got to be very, very careful. I don't mean to disparage funeral homes, because they're doing a very good public service, but their goal is to make money. And you are their pigeon for the day when you walk into that funeral home. They will try to sell you additional services, but most important is they will try to sell you, in many cases, unnecessary things. For example, when you cremate someone, their ashes have to be put in a receptacle. Well, a receptacle is as simple as a plastic bag if you tell the funeral home. The funeral home will show you 3 urns ranging from $1,500 to $10,000, and imply that to comply with state law, you have to buy one of their urns, and you don't have to do that. One of the things, you really don't have the option of price shopping. It's very important to just get the body to a funeral home, and the prices in most regions are fairly stable, but there are differences in prices, and there are certainly differences in the cost of various services.
How do you alert social media? I've gotten notices from LinkedIn or Facebook at somebody's work anniversary, and I say, wait a minute, this person died 3 years ago. How do you alert social media? Do you need to show them a death certificate?
No, most social media companies have a way of notifying someone about a death and then doing something with their site and information. Facebook has it very well articulated, and you basically provide them notice, and then you tell them how you want their data to be treated. Most people just have it either deleted or they put up an in memoriam type thing. This is not really social media, but it's relevant. When my mom died, for the next 12 months, I was continuing to get her credit card invoices. And on every month, there was $25 to Doctors Without Borders, $100 to the American Red Cross. And she had, unbeknownst to her, checked off the recurring donation boxes on these things. And I kept writing to these people saying, stop billing my mother, she's dead. And they just continued to bill her. It was really very irritating. But the same with the websites, it can be very traumatic to find out that people are still trying to communicate with the deceased person.
Scott, we often hear that as we age, we should tell our adult children or other family members where our important papers are kept and so on while we're still alive. But what if someone dies who has no children or close family? Who should be in charge in a case like that?
Your best friend or your lawyer. It's a tragic fact that in this country, I think less than 30% of the population have wills. Yeah, most of us go without a will. And the reason is we're terrified that if we write our will on Monday, we'll be hit by a bus on Tuesday. It's very important that if someone dies without a will, state law dictates where those assets go. Normally, it's to the spouse. Sometimes it's to the spouse and the children. In the absence of a spouse or children, it is to the parents. And in the absence of parents, it's to cousins or uncles and aunts. It depends on state law.
Is it common that the will be read before the funeral? Because I can imagine a case where someone has said they wanted to be cremated and nobody knew that because they hadn't read the will, and they go and have a big elaborate funeral with the burial and plots and things like that. So is it common that they will read the will first?
You don't really sit and read the will. The will exists. Somebody has it. And the will designates who the executor is and may make funeral type decisions on behalf of the deceased. If you can find the will, that is great. You obviously follow the will. If you can't find the will, or there isn't a will, then it's up to the family to decide how they want to do the arrangements. It used to be 50 years ago that this was all fairly well articulated. The Christians did it one way, the Muslims did it one way, the Jews did it another way. Now, its traditions have really gone out the window, and you don't necessarily have a time for mourning. You don't have a time for viewing of the body. You may or may not have a memorial service. You won't have a funeral in a lot of cases. It's interesting. One of my partners, his mother just died in Scotland, and I just handled this question for him. He had just been to see her in August, and he was agonizing about having to go back for a funeral. And I said to him, Callum, don't have a funeral. You don't need a funeral. Let her just get buried next to her husband. And then at Christmas time, have a really nice memorial service for all of your friends to come and remember your mom. And that is what I really strongly recommend, which is don't try to race and have a funeral or a hasty memorial, but plan a really meaningful tribute for the person months later, and really allow as many people as you feel comfortable coming. For my mother's memorial, I think over 400 people showed up at my house, and it was a spectacular event. I think 20 people spoke about my mom.
I want to go back a second to when you're talking about that, to people coming over. I've been in situations where people come and everybody's walking in with a casserole, or people just come and sit and hang out. What do you advise for friends to do? You mentioned that the family of the deceased might like people to come over and be with them right away, but what would you advise to the friends? Just go over, bring food, just go sit quietly, call and see if they want you. What should a friend do?
if you are a close friend or you regard yourself as a close friend, go over there and do whatever you can do to help. Be innocuous, be silent, but help. If you can do the dishes, if you can wash the car, if you can take care of the pets, if you can sit and talk to the person. People are so lonely after a death, and we're just terrible about it. And I really firmly believe that if the grieving family doesn't want you there, they can tell you. And if they do tell you, don't take offense, leave. But by all means, go over there. Lynn, you're absolutely right. It used to be you brought a casserole. I'm not sure you need to do that anymore, but you definitely need to go over there. And you need to offer as much comfort as they're willing to take.
Are you aware of different cultures doing it differently?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, with us Jews, we have a strong tradition of sitting Shiva where it's ritualized, people come over. For the Catholics, it's a little bit different. There's typically a viewing of some, or at least a congregating around the dead. But tradition has sort of gone out the window these days. It's really much more of on a personal basis now.
Scott, I had just one more question, again, about somebody who doesn't really have a lot of assets. If they die with a small bank account and no outstanding debts, let's say they were renters, not owners, and they don't have much family, who gets the furniture, the clothing, the mementos that the person has collected? I mean, is a friend allowed to go in there and say, oh, you always admired this picture, why don't you take it? Or here's a piece of jewelry I think your niece would like. And who does all that?
Well, I'll tell you what the law says, then I'll tell you what you can do. The law is very specific in each state about who gets the property and how the debts are paid. And if there are debts, Miriam, you said there weren't debts, but if there are debts, creditors do need to get paid. And certainly taxes need to be paid. And if you take assets where taxes were due, the IRS or the state can come after you for that. So state law dictates who gets that property. However, in real life, nobody's going to pay attention to this, particularly if somebody doesn't have close siblings. And so by all means, go over and divvy it up any way you want. And if you don't have a deep personal connection with the person, don't even worry about paying the debts. Don't worry about contacting Social Security or the IRS. Just let it all where it may.
Scott, thank you so much for sharing all this information. I'm sure that you've touched on a lot of stuff that people hadn't thought about and will really think about now. That was Scott Smith, author of When Someone Dies.
Thank you very much.
At Not Born Yesterday, we like to keep you up to date on news you may have missed. This next item may not apply specifically to older adults, but Miriam and I both thought it was interesting enough and relevant to our times and our experience to make it worth passing on to you, our listeners. Not long ago, Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor revealed that the Supreme Court had changed the format of its oral arguments because the female justices were constantly interrupted by the male justices. So imagine, if these women can't speak without being interrupted, how much of a problem is it for the rest of us? Journalist Cara Alameo called this man-terruptions. Many recent studies show that this practice is not limited to the Supreme Court, but it is the symptom of a much larger problem. Women's comments are not valued as much as that of men, and that is doubly true for older women. In her article, the writer says that Carnegie Mellon University researcher Joanna Wolf found that when she shows the men the video of themselves interrupting women, they're often surprised because they didn't even realize they were doing it.
So think about this the next time you're on a Zoom or a live meeting or even in a social situation. Men, are you interrupting women who are speaking? And women of any age, do you notice that men are interrupting you more than necessary? Or do you possibly interrupt women more than you might interrupt a man? We think that this man-terrupting is a symptom of a much larger problem. Perhaps women's knowledge and opinions simply aren't valued as much as that of men. So as people who often feel invisible, perhaps we as older adults should pause and recognize that this problem exists. Then people who can should try to prevent it. For example, In the vice presidential debate for 2020, Kamala Harris had to insist, quote, "Mr. Vice President, I am speaking," when she was interrupted by Mike Pence 10 times in their debate. Let's hope that many heard that message and it won't happen again. Interruptions are just one of forces that affect young and older women. All of us need to recognize what is often an unconscious bias. When we see women interrupted, women and men should interrupt themselves at that moment and insist the speaker be allowed to finish. It won't happen automatically, but let's give it a start.
That's our podcast for today. Many thanks to our guest, Scott Smith. Our theme music is from Hook Sounds. You can learn more about Next Village SF by going to the website, nextvillagesf.org.
And thanks to you for listening. We would love to hear what you want us to discover and discuss. Please contact us at notbornyesterday@nextvillagesf.org.
Be well, stay strong, and remember, you weren't born yesterday. I'm Lynn Winter Gross.
And I'm Miriam Goodman.